Picture this. You are walking through an exceptionally clean, contemporary manufacturing environment.
Right, the kind with the really polished floors.
Exactly. Completely meticulous. You can hear the low, rhythmic hum of highly calibrated machinery. The walkways are clearly marked with those pristine yellow lines.
Oh, yeah. Everything has a place.
Right. And you reach a particular section of the production floor, and, well, there it is. A small stack of inventory.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. Identical, neutral gray industrial containers just sitting quietly in a designated square.
Painted right on the floor, usually.
Yep. And if you asked around, you would find out the stack was introduced months, maybe even years ago, to solve a very specific temporary problem.
Like a supplier missing a delivery or something.
Exactly. Or maybe a specific milling machine became, temporarily unreliable during a tool changeover. And the operations team, acting completely rationally, added this extra inventory to protect the line.
Which is a totally sensible response in the moment.
Totally sensible. But here is the catch. The original problem left a long time ago.
Right.
I mean, the supplier recovered, the machine was fixed. The inventory, however, remained.
It always does.
It remained long enough to acquire a formally taped location on the floor, a standard quantity in the system, a dedicated replenishment routine, and somehow the quiet, unassailable authority of company policy.
Yeah. Nobody questions the gray boxes.
Right. It is now literally part of the facility tour given to new employees. So I have to ask, when does protection stop being a decision and start becoming furniture?
That is such a great question, because that transition from a deliberate tactical decision to invisible operational furniture is, well, it's one of the most fascinating phenomena in industrial environment.
It really is. It's almost invisible.
Right. And what makes it so compelling is that it almost never happens through some catastrophic failure of management or gross negligence.
No one is actively trying to waste space.
Exactly. It happens through the most natural, well-intentioned organizational behaviors in the world. We are looking at how temporary countermeasures quietly devolve into permanent operating costs.
And the goal for us today is to deconstruct that transition, right? To figure out how to recognize these hidden bottlenecks and, critically, how to review them without causing chaos on the floor.
Because you can definitely cause chaos if you do it wrong.
Right. So, the natural assumption for anyone adopting a strict lean mindset is to view any pile of static boxes as a failure.
Oh, absolutely. Lean purists hate static boxes.
A failure of flow, a failure of planning. But to understand how this inventory became furniture, we have to acknowledge a fundamental truth about industrial operations, which is nobody buys furniture by accident.
Right. Nobody goes out of their way to hoard material for no reason.
Exactly. This extra material did not spontaneously generate out of thin air. It was born from a highly rational, entirely practical response to a real operational condition. It was a survival mechanism.
It is always a survival mechanism. I mean, the origin story of extra inventory is usually incredibly logical. It's deeply rooted in immediate operational pain.
Right, someone was hurting.
Exactly. Let's look at the specific realities that force a team to create these temporary buffers. The first, and arguably the most common, is short-term demand variation.
Okay, so like a sudden spike in orders.
Right. You have a situation where demand briefly becomes incredibly difficult to predict, or it temporarily exceeds your production team's short-term capacity.
Like, say, marketing runs a promotion they didn't fully communicate to supply chain.
Which never happens, right?
Right, never. Or a major client suddenly accelerates an order, and the capacity of the physical plant is fixed for that week.
You cannot just magically spin up a new assembly line overnight. It's impossible.
So you need a way to absorb that shock so the customer does not experience a delay or a failed delivery.
Because the alternative is a missed commitment, which, in many industries comes with severe financial penalties or lost market share.
Which is unacceptable.
Exactly. So creating a buffer is the responsible choice in that moment. Now, a second reality driving this is upstream process capability problems.
Okay, break that down for me. Upstream capability.
So this is when a critical machine in your own production sequence starts failing without warning. It loses its capability to produce at its rated cycle time.
Oh, I see. So let's say you have a highly specialized CNC machine feeding a general assembly line.
Perfect example.
And if that CNC machine starts experiencing microstoppages, maybe an issue with the coolant system or a recurring software glitch, The operator is sitting there watching the assembly line downstream get dangerously close to starvation.
Yeah, the stress of that is immense for an operator.
I can imagine.
The natural protective response from that shift supervisor is to run the CNC machine overtime when it actually is functioning. They overproduce slightly to build up a pile of parts.
They're building a wall of inventory to protect the downstream processes.
Right, to stop the line from being starved of materials the next time the machine inevitably faults.
Makes total sense.
Then there's a third, heavily cited reality, which is supplier unreliability.
Ah, external factors.
Exactly. A supplier misses a delivery or their lead times suddenly become volatile. You might be expecting a truck of raw materials every Tuesday and suddenly it starts arriving on Thursday or Friday.
And you cannot halt a multi-million-dollar operation waiting for a truck to arrive.
No way. The idle time costs alone would be astronomical.
Right. So procurement steps in and orders an extra 2 weeks of material to keep nearby.
Exactly. And a fourth reason is temporary equipment instability.
Like when you're setting up new machines.
Exactly. This often happens during the commissioning of new equipment or when testing a new setup. The engineering team knows the process isn't stable yet.
So they deliberately hold extra stock to isolate the rest of the factory from their testing friction.
Right. And in every single one of these scenarios, an individual made a practical, protective decision.
It wasn't about being inefficient at all.
Not at all. It was about protecting production and protecting the customer.
But wait, before we move on to how these protective decisions go wrong, I feel like we need to address a major point of confusion here.
Okay, what's that?
Well, in casual operational conversations, people tend to look at any piled boxes and just call it extra stuff, right? Or they use the word buffer generically for everything.
Oh yes, that happens constantly.
But treating all extra stock as fundamentally the same thing is operationally dangerous, isn't it? We need to clearly preserve the distinction between two specific terms here: buffer stock and safety stock.
Yes. Mixing those up is like diagnosing the wrong mechanical failure.
Right, so let's clarify that, because blurring those terms strips away our ability to diagnose the root cause of why the inventory is there in the first place.
Exactly. Buffer stock and safety stock serve two distinct, almost opposing operational purposes.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Buffer stock is positioned to protect the customer. It protects the outward delivery when short-term demand exceeds your internal production capacity.
So you are buffering the customer against your own capacity limits and variations?
Exactly. You're holding it at the end of the line, basically. Whereas safety stock is looking in the opposite direction.
It's facing inward.
Correct. Safety stock prevents internal downstream disruption. It protects your own process when an upstream process, whether that is your own machine or an external supplier, becomes unreliable.
Got it. So you are holding a safety net to ensure your own line keeps running despite internal or supply side failures.
Right.
Let's use an analogy to lock this in, because I think the distinction is that critical for you listening. Think of it like the different types of protection engineered into a vehicle.
I like this, okay.
Buffer stock is your car's shock absorber. It is designed to handle the bumpy road ahead, which represents unpredictable external customer demand.
Right, the road is out of your control.
Exactly. The shock absorber smooths out the rides so the passenger, the customer, does not feel the jolt of your internal capacity hitting a pothole.
That's a great way to look at it.
But safety stock, however, is the spare tire sitting in your trunk. You carry a spare tire because you know there is a statistical risk of an external puncture, a supplier dropping the ball, or an upstream machine breaking down.
Exactly.
So if a plant manager walks the floor and labels both the shock absorbers and the spare tires just, extra parts, they completely lose the ability to understand what risk they are actually managing.
That's exactly the danger. If you don't know whether you are carrying a spare tire or installing a shock absorber, you cannot effectively manage the system.
You're just flying blind.
Right. And this brings us to a core operational principle that really anchors this entire discussion. The objective here is not indiscriminate inventory reduction.
Right. We are not advocating for a blind slash and burn approach to inventory here.
No, definitely not.
A mandate that just says cut floor stock by 20% across the board is a recipe for a supply chain heart attack.
It really is.
Yeah.
Removing buffer stock or safety stock without first correcting the underlying condition it was designed to protect against is, well, it's operational malpractice.
Malpractice, yeah.
If you take away the safety stock but your supplier is still missing their delivery windows, or you remove the buffer stock but your short-term demand remains wildly unpredictable, You are simply stripping away the armor.
You're just exposing the customer or your downstream operations to the original disruption all over again.
Exactly. Reducing inventory before correcting the variability or the capability problem actively harms delivery performance.
So the initial addition of the inventory is precise, rational, and highly protective. It makes total sense in the moment.
It does.
The mystery is what happens next. I mean, if the creation of this buffer was so deliberate, so carefully considered by intelligent people managing real risk, how does it devolve into a vague fixture?
How does it become furniture?
Right.
Yeah.
How does a calculated, temporary operational decision fade into the background scenery?
Well, we shift our focus from the creation of the buffer to the erosion of its context. What we are examining here is the gradual, silent loss of operational memory.
Organizations are surprisingly forgetful.
Oh, absolutely. Organizations possess this incredible capability to meticulously preserve a physical routine while simultaneously losing all trace of the explanation behind it.
You see this all the time, people performing a highly specific operational ritual, but if you ask them why they do it, the answer is always some variation of, well, that is just how we have always done it.
Always. Because when a temporary countermeasure is first introduced, its purpose is starkly obvious to everyone in the room.
The pain is fresh.
Right, the pain of the supplier failure or the machine breakdown is incredibly fresh. But over time, that context evaporates. And the most common catalyst for this evaporation is role changes.
Ah, the turnover of human capital.
Exactly. The production manager who experienced the pain of the machine failure, the person who calculated the exact number of pallets needed to survive the week they get promoted.
Or they transfer to a different facility. Or they just leave the company entirely.
Right. And the moment that individual walks out the door, the precise data-driven reasoning leaves with them.
The data leaves, and all that's left is a myth.
The incident that caused the problem degrades into a vague story. A new supervisor asks about the stack of neutral gray containers, and a senior operator replies, "Oh, years ago we had a major problem with that supplier, so we keep those there."
It ceases to be a measurable operational parameter and becomes organizational folklore.
Exactly. Folklore.
So the physical inventory manages to outlive the human memory of its own justification. But it isn't just human memory that fails, right? Our systems are incredibly complicit in this too.
Oh, the systems are the main enforcers.
You mentioned inherited replenishment roles earlier. The ERP system, the inventory management software, it has no capacity for context. It only knows the numbers it is fed.
Right. The quantity of the temporary buffer gets hard-coded into the planning systems. Someone updates the minimum order quantity or the safety stock parameter in the software to reflect the temporary workaround.
Just to get through the month.
Just to get through the month. But once it is in the system, replenishment continues simply because it continued yesterday.
The software dictates that we need 50 of these components on hand at all times.
So the purchasing department, acting completely efficiently on the data they see, continues to order 50. The system just automates the workaround.
It's wild. The shelf has better institutional memory than the spreadsheet.
It genuinely does. The physical presence of the inventory creates its own gravity. And those familiar physical locations breed a unique kind of complacency.
How so?
Well, the temporary stock gains a marked location. Someone tapes out a square on the floor. Someone prints a barcode label for the rack.
And once it has a label, it's official.
Once it has a label and a designated square, new employees are explicitly trained to maintain it. Their onboarding process teaches them that success in their role includes ensuring this specific rack always contains these specific components.
They are never told about the supplier failure from 3 years ago.
No, they are just taught the standard.
So a temporary workaround solidifies into a routine. That routine gets documented and becomes standard work. And standard work is notoriously difficult to question in a busy environment.
Nobody has the time.
Right. Nobody wants to be the new inventory clerk who stops ordering the material that the entire facility treats as a critical baseline.
Planning assumptions simply stop being questioned. The organization perfectly remembers to maintain the physical stock, but it entirely forgets the decision that created it.
Which creates a massive problem.
A severe hidden bottleneck. It looks like the factory is running smoothly, but underneath, there's a massive inefficiency dragging down performance.
Let's talk about the actual cost of this operational furniture. Because it isn't just taking up space, is it? It is actively damaging the business model.
Oh, the holding costs are multifaceted. First, it ties up working capital.
Just cash sitting on the floor.
Cash sitting on the floor in the form of gray containers that could be invested in new equipment, R&D, or better employee compensation.
Right. What's the second cost?
Second, it occupies highly valuable physical floor space. I mean, in modern manufacturing, the cost per square foot is at a massive premium.
You can't just expand the building.
Exactly. Third, it requires continuous, non-value-added handling. People have to count it during cycle counts. They have to physically move it to clean around it. They have to ensure it doesn't get damaged.
It's a chore.
A constant chore. And fourth, there is a massive risk of obsolescence. If the engineering team updates the product design, that permanent, temporary buffer of old components is suddenly just scrap metal.
But, I'd argue the most insidious cost isn't financial at all.
What do you mean?
Well, it is the fact that this inventory conceals a process condition that nobody is actively reviewing. If the buffer is continually masking the fact that an upstream machine is experiencing daily microstoppages, the downstream line never starves.
Right.
And because the downstream line never starves, the alarm never sounds.
That is a brilliant point. A maintenance ticket is never generated. The underlying mechanical failure is allowed to persist and likely worsen because the buffer is absorbing all the pain.
Scenery rarely appears on an improvement plan.
It doesn't. If the entire operational team views the buffer as just a permanent fixture of the environment, it will never be flagged during a lean, continuous improvement event. It becomes literally invisible.
Which brings up something even crazier. This loss of memory, this organizational habit of preserving the workaround, it doesn't just infect the human habits on the floor.
Oh no, it goes much deeper now.
It actually becomes literally hard-coded into our most advanced physical technologies. The way our cutting-edge systems interact with our forgotten decisions is almost poetic.
The intersection of inherited human processes and advanced automation really provides a perfect illustration of this problem.
Right. Consider a conceptual example that perfectly captures this for you. Imagine returning to that beautiful, immaculate manufacturing environment we envisioned earlier.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The polished resin floor is gleaming. You have high clerestory windows casting soft, natural industrial light across the layout. And right there, sitting inside what looks like a beautifully permanent recessed floor bay, is our modest, forgotten palette of old buffer inventory.
The workaround that achieved tenure.
Exactly. And the visual evidence of its permanence is striking. The industrial floor coating around the factory has naturally faded over time, everywhere except beneath this specific palette.
Oh, that's a great detail.
The sanitation team has run their automated floor scrubbers around it so many times that there is a pristine, polished outline perfectly framing the base of the containers.
It's protected.
There is even a delicate little indoor plant that has somehow taken root and grown beside it, undisturbed. But here is the critical moment. Down the main aisle comes a compact, autonomous mobile robot, an AMR.
Oh, those are incredible machines.
Highly advanced piece of technology equipped with LiDAR, dynamic pathfinding algorithms, the works. It approaches along a perfectly organized, highly efficient route. And then, without a millisecond of hesitation, it calculates a highly optimized, elegantly curved detour right around this forgotten palette, smooths out its trajectory, and continues on its way.
That image is striking because it highlights a critical reality about system design. The robot is not making a mistake. It is executing the environment it was given.
We optimize the route. The obstruction successfully retains stakeholder status.
Yes, it is the ultimate physical expression of an inherited process decision. The advanced automation has perfectly learned to accommodate an obsolete workaround.
And we must be very clear about this. This is not a criticism of the automation or the robotics.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The AMR is doing exactly what its sensors and its programming navigate the physical geometry of the facility with maximum efficiency and safety.
It's doing its job perfectly.
The deeper issue lies in the fact that the technical system is so incredibly competent at routing around the obstruction that the human organization forgot to question why the obstruction is still sitting there in the first place.
Right. The sophistication of the technology actually enables the organizational amnesia.
It masks the problem beautifully.
The system implies that the organization adapted itself to the buffer instead of reconsidering the buffer. Think about it. Nearby floor geometry, the programmed cleaning routines, the robot's spatial mapping software, all of these highly complex systems were carefully, expensively redesigned around one temporary decision that nobody remembers making.
Which demonstrates exactly why we cannot rely on humans simply noticing the buffer through visual management, nor can we rely on advanced technology to naturally optimize it away.
You can't just hope someone spots it.
No, you cannot rely on either humans or robots to naturally question a deeply established environment. The workaround becomes completely invisible, precisely because it has been so thoroughly normalized by both the human routines and the automated systems.
So, if human memory fades and the ERP system blindly reorders it and the robots just elegantly drive around it, we have to introduce a forcing function.
We need a mechanism to force the question.
Right. We need a way to give the word temporary a strictly operational meaning rather than just an organizational mood. Because right now, temporary just means until we forget about it.
Exactly. And the solution to this is surprisingly pragmatic. We do not need a multi-million-dollar software integration to fix this.
That's a relief.
We do not need an army of external consultants to map the value stream. The most effective response is highly low cost.
What are we talking about here?
We're talking about utilizing a simple physical card attached to the rack, a dedicated column in a shared spreadsheet, or adding a few mandatory fields to your existing inventory management software.
A governance structure that doesn't require an 18-month IT rollout.
Exactly. This relies on implementing 4 specific governance fields for every single deliberate buffer.
Okay, let's break these down thoroughly, starting with the first field, owner.
Defining the owner is where many organizations stumble right out of the gate. We must clarify what ownership actually means in this context, because the default assumption is usually incorrect.
Right, because the immediate instinct in a warehouse or manufacturing setting is to assign ownership to the person who has physical custody of the item.
Exactly.
You assume the owner is the forklift driver who moves the pallet, or the inventory control clerk who goes out with a scanner and counts the boxes every cycle count.
But that physical custody is not ownership.
So what is it?
Ownership, in the context of inventory governance, means accountability for reviewing the decision to keep the buffer. It means identifying the specific individual who is strategically responsible for periodically asking the question, is the business justification for this inventory still valid?
Okay, so it is the owner of the operational logic, not the owner of the physical boxes.
Precisely.
The person who signs their name next to the underlying risk.
Yes. You are attaching a specific human name to the operational reasoning. If that buffer is tying up capital and taking up space, someone must be accountable for its continued existence.
It might be the supply chain manager, the production superintendent, or the lead procurement officer.
Right. But it cannot be an anonymous organizational decision.
That structural accountability is crucial. The second governance field is reason. Now, human nature being what it is, if a busy manager is filling out a digital form or a tag, the temptation is immense to just write just in case and move on.
Oh, just in case is the enemy here.
Because technically, that is the underlying emotional reason for almost all buffer stock, right?
Just in case is a symptom of fear. It is not an operational reason. Just in case should be treated as a massive red flag,
Right.
an immediate invitation to investigate the process, not as valid evidence of a need.
It's an excuse, not a reason.
Right. The reason field must clearly identify the specific risk, the specific constraint, or the specific variation that the inventory was introduced to protect against.
So it forces the team to diagnose the mechanical or systemic issue all over again. You cannot write just in case.
No, you must write something highly specific, such as supplier lead time instability for component X, varying between 5 and 14 days.
Or to cover unexpected downtime on milling machine number 4 during complex changeovers.
Exactly. The reason must be framed as a testable hypothesis.
Yeah.
If the reason is highly specific, you can look at the data 3 months later and measure whether that specific risk still exists.
Because if the reason is a vague emotional comfort blanket like just in case, the buffer is guaranteed to live forever.
Exactly, because you can never prove that just in case is no longer a possibility.
Vague reasons create permanent furniture. Okay, the third field is review date. This seems like the mechanical engine of the whole governance structure.
It really is. Review dates create a deliberate, unavoidable decision point. You choose an exact date on the calendar when the decision to maintain this buffer will be actively reconsidered by the owner.
This directly attacks the indefinite existence through silence problem. I mean, in most corporate environments, if nobody brings an issue up in a meeting, the status quo is maintained. Silence equals approval.
And a mandatory review date strips away that default approval mechanism. It prevents a temporary countermeasure from becoming permanent simply because the organization got distracted by other fires.
You are forcing a specific conversation to happen on a specific Tuesday in 3 months, regardless of what else is going on.
Exactly. It places a hard expiration date on the validity of the workaround.
Which leads to the fourth and most demanding field, exit condition. This one requires real engineering and strategic thought.
The exit condition defines the finish line. The team must define, in measurable terms, exactly what evidence or process improvement would allow the buffer to be safely resized or removed entirely.
What must become true in the real world for us to trust the system again?
Exactly. For example, if the specific reason logged was supplier lead time instability, an appropriate exit condition might be 8 consecutive weeks of 98% on time in full deliveries from this supplier, verified by procurement data.
Oh, I see. Or if the reason was milling machine downtime, the exit condition would be maintenance verifies capability is restored, demonstrating a 95% uptime and 0 microstoppages over a 30-day production run.
You are defining the exact parameters of success for the temporary solution.
This fundamentally changes the nature of the inventory. It connects a static pile of boxes directly to continuous improvement.
It does.
The buffer isn't just sitting there gathering dust. It is sitting there actively waiting for a specific, measurable improvement to occur in the broader system.
Now, a critical point of clarification is required here, though. These 4 fields: owner, reason, review date, and exit condition. They are powerful tools for governance and for preserving organizational memory.
Right.
However, they do not replace quantitative inventory analysis.
Meaning, this methodology doesn't give you a mathematical formula for how many boxes you should hold. It doesn't calculate your reorder point.
Exactly. They are not a substitute for supply chain mathematics. The correct volumetric quantity of your buffer or safety stock still depends entirely on statistical demand patterns, lead time variance, and calculated risk tolerance.
The math is still the math.
The governance fields simply ensure that whatever quantity the math dictated is attached to a deliberate, reviewable, and temporary operational reason.
Okay, so understanding the theory of these 4 fields is vital. But the reality of walking onto a loud, high-pressure manufacturing floor tomorrow and actually applying them is a different challenge.
It is a huge challenge.
If you are listening to this and feeling motivated to go clear out some floor space and optimize your facility, how do you execute this without causing a massive disruption? We need a highly practical, step-by-step sequence.
Right. We can follow a precise 8-step sequence designed for conducting a safe field review of a deliberate buffer.
Okay, let's walk through it. Step 1.
Step 1 is the most important for maintaining stability. Select one deliberate buffer. Do not attempt a massive facility-wide purge.
Select a single, isolated workaround to begin with.
Exactly. Find that one pallet of old castings that everyone has been ignoring for a year and start there.
Start small. Got it. Step 2.
Step 2. Ask when and why it was originally introduced. This requires investigative work. You have to recover the origin story, talk to the senior operators, check old maintenance logs. What specific condition forced this inventory into existence?
This is where you have to wade through the folklore. You have to push past the years ago we had a problem narrative and find the actual historical event.
You need the truth, not the myth.
Yeah.
Then, step 3, verify whether that original condition still exists today. This is a purely data-driven exercise.
So if the origin story was a supplier issue, you pull the current performance data for that supplier.
Right. If it was a machine issue, analyze the recent overall equipment effectiveness data for that specific asset.
Prove the problem is still real. Step 4.
Step 4. Identify the evidence supporting its current quantity. Why do we have exactly 3 pallets?
Was that a statistically calculated safety stock level, or is 3 simply the number of pallets that neatly fit into that specific rack?
You often find the physical constraint dictated the volume, not the math.
Which is terrifying. Okay, step 5. Step 5. Examine what risk would return if the quantity changed. This requires deep systems thinking. Before you authorize the removal of a single box, you must ask, if we cut this buffer in half today, what is the immediate cascading danger to the end customer or the downstream assembly process?
You are testing the tension in the system before you cut the safety rope. You have to understand the failure mode.
Precisely. Step 6. Identify who holds the decision authority, who is practically and structurally allowed to authorize a change to this buffer.
This aligns with finding the true owner we discussed earlier, the person accountable.
Yes. Step 7. Choose your action. You have 4 options: keep, resize, remove, or investigate.
Investigate is an option. It is vital to note that investigate is a highly valid and often the most common outcome of the first review.
Interesting. And the final step.
Finally, step 8. Record the next review date and the explicit exit condition. You document the decision, even if the decision was simply to keep it and review it again in a month.
You know, as someone who loves efficiency, My impulse is to walk the floor, see a pallet with no clear owner and a vague history, and immediately mandate its removal. If nobody can defend it, clear the space.
And that impulse is exactly what causes supply chain failures. I must issue a firm warning on this point.
Okay, hit me.
Do not encourage immediate removal. Do not begin the governance process by arbitrarily reducing quantities,
Even if the explanation is terribly vague.
especially if the explanation is vague. If the historical evidence is insufficient, or if the justification relies on a faded story from 3 years ago, your recommendation must be to investigate the system, not to eliminate the inventory.
Because it might still be doing a job we don't understand yet.
Exactly. Removing inventory without first definitively correcting the variability or the capability problem that might still be lurking underneath can be disastrous. It instantly exposes your customers and your downstream operations to disruption.
It's like pulling down a load-bearing wall because you don't know why it's there.
The perfect analogy. The goal of this entire governance exercise is to recover the reasoning, not to blindly execute reductions. You're trying to distinguish between 3 categories.
Yeah.
Inventory that legitimately protects against a current risk, inventory whose quantity is poorly calibrated and should change, and inventory that only survives because its origin story was forgotten.
The primary directive is to restore the operational reason first. We do not just dump the boxes and hope the system holds. To solidify how this 8-step sequence actually functions in a real environment, let's construct a concrete scenario. To be completely explicit for you listening, this is a generic, purely hypothetical example, carefully constructed to illustrate the mechanics of the review process.
Right, let's build the hypothetical. Imagine a team managing a high-volume assembly line that builds complex electromechanical components.
Okay, picturing it.
About a year ago, they experienced a period of severe, highly disruptive instability with the external supplier of a specialized microchip.
Which is painful.
The supplier was missing delivery windows, delivering partial shipments, and causing line stoppages.
So the pain on the assembly line is acute. So to protect their production output acting purely as safety stock to insulate their downstream process, the supply chain team sensibly adds a temporary buffer of, let's say, 2 extra pallets of these specific microchips.
That is a completely rational decision. Now, fast forward 8 months. The external supplier has completely overhauled their operations. They hired a new logistics director, upgraded their internal ERP systems, and their delivery performance seemingly improves dramatically.
The missed deliveries stop entirely.
But those 2 extra pallets of microchips are still sitting in their designated bay on the floor.
They are getting scanned during the monthly cycle count, they are gathering a thin layer of industrial dust, and our advanced AMR robot is happily executing its elegant detour around them multiple times a day.
Exactly. So the plant manager decides to implement the 8-step review process. They do not just walk up to the bay and order the pallets thrown out or sold off because they look unnecessary or because the supplier seems better.
They don't trust the feeling.
They begin methodically. Step 2. They verify the history and confirm the buffer was added due to that specific supplier's instability. Step 3. They check the current data to see if the supplier's improvement is actually sustained and mathematically verifiable.
They examine the risk profile. They don't just look at the supplier, they look at their own system. They ask, are there any new variables? Did our overall production demand suddenly spike, which might mean we still need this volumetric safety stock to cover the increased baseline, even if the supplier is performing better?
Right. They conduct a holistic examination of both demand risk and process risk.
Yeah.
They identify the senior supply chain manager as the owner with the authority to make the decision.
And then rather than relying on a gut feeling, they document a highly specific exit condition.
Yes. The team agrees. If this specific supplier achieves 99.5% on time, in full delivery for the next 12 consecutive weeks, we will authorize reducing this safety stock from 2 pallets down to a half pallet.
And they set a hard review date on the calendar for exactly 12 weeks from today to review that specific data set.
Yes. And consider what this process looks like physically on the manufacturing floor. It does not look like a sudden, chaotic clearing of space. It looks like a measured, highly disciplined review.
Instead of removing everything, the team might physically segregate the inventory. They might pull half a pallet aside, place a highly visible designated review marker or tag on it, and leave the remaining stock safely in the system.
Which is brilliant visually.
It proves to the entire floor staff that restoring operational reasoning is a safe, controlled process. You are isolating a specific variable to test the system's tension rather than engaging in reckless, aggressive elimination.
It is fundamentally a controlled experiment designed to recover operational memory. You are taking the word temporary and giving it a hard, measurable operational meaning once again.
This represents a profound shift in perspective. The core takeaway from this deep dive is that a responsible, mature operation does not remove a buffer simply because it visually appears unnecessary or because nobody on the current shift remembers why it was placed there.
Acting on those impulses is a reliable recipe for breaking your supply chain.
Instead, the ultimate goal is to recover the historical reason, rigorously test the assumptions behind that reason using current data, and make the next decision highly visible through clear ownership, mandatory review dates, and precise exit conditions.
It is entirely about ensuring that no temporary, localized solution outlives its operational purpose purely by accident. It is about actively managing the system's memory. And this physical reality on the manufacturing floor extends far beyond pallets and gray containers.
It definitely does.
Think about the wider context of your daily work, your digital environment. If physical inventory is often just a physical manifestation of operational memory, what other temporary digital workarounds have you accepted?
Oh, that's a scary thought.
What recurring high-friction sync meetings were set up during a specific crisis 3 years ago and never canceled?
Probably too many.
Would hastily applied software patches or complex spreadsheet macros have achieved permanent residency in your daily processes simply because nobody ever scheduled the next decision to review their exit condition?
That is a question we all need to ask ourselves.
You might find that your digital furniture is far more expensive than a few forgotten boxes on the floor.